The cuffs clicked tightly over Ethan Hayes' wrists, and the cold metal hurt his flesh as the deputy laughed. "Turn around, soldier boy. You're under arrest." Ethan didn't move or say anything. He just gazed straight ahead with eyes that were as steady as steel. People outside Whitaker's souvenir shop were talking quietly, some laughing, and some pointing at the man in jeans and a baseball cap. In their eyes, he was just another troublemaker in a sleepy Virginia hamlet. But the deputies had no idea that the man they had handcuffed was a tomb guard, one of the best who were chosen to commemorate the dead at Arlington. Somewhere miles away, a colonel with a chest full of medals was already speeding toward Willow Creek, ready to turn this little town blunder into a national scandal. Before we get into this story, please subscribe to the channel and turn the notification bell on. Also tell us where are you watching from. Please tell us in the comments. If you think that principles like honor, bravery, and sacrifice still exist, help us preserve their memory alive. The sun was low in the sky over Virginia's rolling hills, and it produced long shadows on the calm streets of Willow Creek, a little community a few miles from Arlington National Cemetery. Ethan Hayes, 32, got out of his old rental car and walked over the gravel of a parking lot outside the Whitaker souvenir shop. He wasn't wearing his tomb guard costume today. He didn't have on a navy blue coat, a kepi hat, or polished shoes. Instead, he wore jeans, a battered leather jacket, and a baseball cap pulled low over his short hair. Ethan still felt like a soldier even when he was wearing regular clothes. Shoulders straight, eyes alert, and every motion planned. He had just concluded a shift guarding the tomb of the unknown soldier. He had taken 21 steps in 21 seconds, and the rhythm of honor was imprinted into his bones. He was here for a simple reason: to get a present for his mom's birthday. As Ethan walked into the store, the bell above the entrance rang. The air smelt like old coffee and cheap plastic. There were racks of postcards, small American flags, and fake military medals on the walls. Carl Whitaker, 45, stood behind the counter. He was thin and had a perpetual frown and a buzz cut that was starting to turn gray. He looked up from the newspaper and looked at Ethan like he was trouble waiting to happen. Carl's voice was rough and obviously full of doubt when he said, "Can I help you?" Ethan gave a polite nod. "I'm just looking for a present, maybe a necklace or something nice for my mom." Carl sneered and crossed his arms. "You don't look like the kind of person who buys gifts. What's your deal? Are you one of those wannabe soldier boys who comes in here and acts like something you're not?" Ethan's jaw tensed, but his voice stayed steady. Carl leaned closer and narrowed his eyes. "I'm just here to shop, sir." "Yeah, right. I know your type. You always act like you own the place. Are you in the military?" Ethan paused. He didn't want to show off his service, especially not to someone like Carl, who looked like he had a chip on his shoulder the size of a tank. "I serve." "Yeah, serve, huh?" Carl said with a sneer as he threw his newspaper away. "I bet you're one of those desk jockeys who has never seen a real fight. Let me guess, National Guard weekend warrior." Ethan's hand twitched at his side, but he stayed calm. He'd been through worse than a mean shop owner: Taliban attacks, IEDs, and the screaming of his squad mates in the dark. He wasn't going to let this guy get to him. Carl laughed in a sharp, unpleasant way and said, "I'm a tomb guard, Arlington. You don't make me laugh. Those guys are the real deal. You look like you're just playing dress up." Sarah Coleman, 28, came in when the doorbell rang again. She was a local reporter who was good at finding stories. She had piercing brown eyes, and usually had her phone ready to record. She caught the last part of Carl's jibe and raised an eyebrow. She stood behind a rack of keychains, pretending to look around. Ethan pulled out his military ID from his back pocket. "Here's my ID. I'm just here to buy something." "Okay." Carl grabbed the ID, hardly looked at it, and then threw it on the counter like it was trash. "This looks fake. You think you can trick me with some photocopied crap? I've seen enough of you people come through here and cause trouble." Ethan's voice stayed low, but it was suddenly strong. "Sir, that's a federal ID. You might want to look again." Sarah's fingers were hovering over her phone. She pressed record and kept the device low. She knew this wasn't just a small fight. Carl's face was crimson as he leaned over the counter. "Don't tell me what to do in my own store. You're acting weird and I don't like it. I'm calling the cops." Ethan's brows narrowed. "That's not necessary. I'm not causing any trouble." Too late. Carl picked up the phone on the counter and dialed. His voice dropped to a whisper as he spoke. "Yes, sheriff's office. There's a guy in here acting really strange. He looks like he's up to no good. You should send someone right away." Sarah's heart plummeted. She had seen this before, people in tiny towns jumping to conclusions, especially when someone didn't fit their sense of what was normal. Ethan didn't move his hands, and his stance was calm but vigilant, as if he had been schooled for situations like this. A few minutes later, tires crunched outside, and red and blue lights shone through the dirty windows of the store. 2 deputies came in. Deputy Tom Randall, a big man in his 40s with a crew cut, and Deputy Jake Ellis, who was younger and thinner and had a sneer that said trouble. Randall had already put his hand on his holster. Randall said, "Okay, what's going on here?" as his eyes locked on Ethan. Carl pointed. "This guy is making a scene. He says he's a big-shot soldier, but I don't believe him. Check his ID. It's probably fake." Ethan cautiously raised his hand, palms open. "Officers, I'm Staff Sergeant Ethan Hayes, an active-duty Army tomb guard at Arlington. My ID is on the counter. I'm just trying to buy a gift." Ellis sneered, and picked up the ID, giving it a quick look. "Guarding the tomb, huh? You want us to believe that? You look like you're just passing through and causing trouble." Randall moved closer and spoke in a low, threatening manner. "Now show me your driver's license." Ethan hesitantly grabbed for his wallet. Randall barely looked at the documents before placing them back onto the counter. "It's right here, along with my federal travel orders. I'm on official business heading back to Arlington after this. These don't mean anything. For all we know, you could have printed these off the internet." Sarah's jaw fell. She moved closer, and her phone was still recording. "Excuse me, officers. I'm a reporter for the Willow Creek Gazette. That ID looks real to me. You might want to check it out before you make any decisions." Randall gave her a dirty look. "Ma'am, stay out of this. It doesn't concern you." Ethan's voice sliced through the tension, solid as always. "Please call Arlington National Cemetery and ask for Colonel James Monroe. He'll tell you who I am," Ellis said, laughing and crossing his arms. "You hear this guy? He thinks he can talk to a colonel directly. Turn around and put your hands behind your back." Ethan didn't move. "Sir, you're wrong. I'm not resisting, but I won't go anywhere until you check my ID," Randall said, his face clouded. "That's it. You're being arrested for obstruction." Before Ethan could say anything, Ellis grabbed his arm and twisted it hard. Ethan got tense but didn't fight back, because he had been trained not to. He understood that fighting would just make things worse. The cuffs clicked shut, and the cold metal hurt his wrists. There was a tiny gathering outside, made up of residents, a few tourists, and even an old man in a Vietnam veteran cap who was staring in shock. Sarah's voice got louder, sharper, and clearer. "You're holding an active-duty soldier without cause. I'm recording this, and it's going live right now." She pressed the button to live stream her phone, which recorded everything. The video showed Ethan calm but handcuffed, with his military ID lying on the counter and the cops standing aggressively. People from all over, including veterans, residents, and strangers, started to leave angry comments. Carl crossed his arms and smirked inside. Ethan's eyes met Carl's without blinking. "That's what you get for acting like you're better than us." "I don't think I'm better than anyone else. I just want to do my job and remember the dead." The old veteran outside pushed through the crowd, his voice wavering yet strong. "Let that man go. He's one of ours. I served in Nam, and I know a soldier when I see one." Randall pushed Ethan toward the door and didn't listen. "Come on, tough guy." Ethan's phone buzzed loudly on the counter. Colonel Monroe's name lit up on the screen. Before Carl could get it, Sarah grabbed it and held it up. "Officers, this is Colonel James Monroe from Arlington. You need to answer this." Ellis thought for a second. Then Randall grabbed the phone and looked angry. "What?" Colonel Monroe's voice echoed across the speaker. "This is Colonel James Monroe, Arlington National Cemetery. You are holding Staff Sergeant Ethan Hayes, a tomb guard under my command. Let him go right away and wait for more orders." Randall's face became pale, but he tried to keep his cool. "We didn't know, sir. He was acting strange." Monroe's voice was cold. "You had his ID in your hands. You chose not to check. Let him go now." The gathering outside was becoming bigger, and they were all filming everything. Sarah's live stream was getting a lot of viewers in just a few minutes. "Free the soldier," the old veteran began to chant. Others followed in, and their voices grew louder. Ellis fumbled with his keys and unlocked the cuffs with a grimace. Randall mumbled something to himself and didn't look at Ethan. Ethan stroked his wrist, and it was hard to tell what he was thinking. He gently picked up his phone, which now had a cracked screen. "Colonel, I'm safe and waiting for orders." Monroe's voice got a little softer. "Don't move, Sergeant. We're coming to you." In a few minutes, the sound of engines filled the air. 3 black SUVs sped into the parking lot, and their doors flew open. Colonel James Monroe, 55, got out. His outfit was neat, and his eyes were flaming. A group of military police stood on either side of him, making everyone quiet. As Monroe walked toward Ethan, The throng moved aside. "Sergeant Hayes, are you hurt?" Monroe's voice rang out over the lot. Ethan said no. "No, sir, it was just a misunderstanding." Monroe's face was like stone as he turned to the deputies. "You must stand down. This matter is now being looked into by the federal government. Any further actions will be seen as obstructing justice." Randall stuttered. "We didn't know he was—" Monroe stopped him. "You had his credentials, and chose to ignore them. That choice has consequences." Carl shuffled uncomfortably beside the door. "I was just protecting my store, okay?" "This guy looked—" Monroe's glance stopped him. "You saw a man in civilian clothes, and made assumptions. Those assumptions have cost you more than you know. The MPs created a protective circle around Ethan and led him to one of the SUVs. Sarah kept filming, and said in a calm voice, "This is Staff Sergeant Ethan Hayes, a tomb guard who was wrongfully held in Willow Creek, Virginia. The truth is coming out." Ethan looked back at the store as the SUVs drove away. Carl was going back inside, his bluster gone. The audience was quiet now, with some people looking ashamed and others angry. The ancient soldier saluted Ethan, his hand shaking but proud. Ethan sat silently in the SUV, looking out at the fields that were passing by. Monroe spoke up. "This goes higher, Sergeant. Internal Review, Civil Liberties Unit, the works. This town's about to learn what accountability looks like." Ethan nodded and said softly, "They should have known better, sir." Monroe's jaw hardened. "They're about to." Sarah's video had gone viral by the next morning. News outlets played it over and again, demonstrating how calm and dignified Ethan was in the face of the deputies' violence. Veterans groups filled social media with messages of solidarity, calling it a shame. Civil rights leaders said it was an obvious case of bias. The governor even made a statement saying that the event was an insult to a national icon. Outside of Sheriff Dan Carter's office in Willow Creek, a lot of reporters were waiting for him. "We're sorry this happened," he said, his forehead sweating. "Officers involved are on administrative leave while the investigation is going on." A teenage reporter, inspired by Sarah's work, pushed him. "Sheriff, how could your deputies ignore a federal military ID? Was race a factor in this?" Carter stammered, saying something about protocol and high tensions, but the throng didn't believe him. The department was in a tough spot, and their explanations didn't work. At the same time, Ethan was back in his tomb guard outfit at Arlington, getting ready for his next shift. Colonel Monroe took him to the side. "You did the right thing, Sergeant. You kept your head and your honor. That's what makes you one of us." Ethan nodded and spoke calmly. "I didn't do it for myself, sir. I did it for the people we protect." Monroe put a hand on his shoulder. "I know, and they would be proud." The news continued getting out. Anonymous sources said that deputies Randall and Ellis have a history of complaints about too much force and unfair stops that were never looked into. Not this time. The Justice Department looked into the matter, and civil rights lawyers filed complaints on Ethan's behalf. Willow Creek was no longer just a dot on a map, it was a flashpoint. A week later, Ethan stood at a podium outside the main gates of Arlington. His dress uniform shone in the midday light. There were a lot of cameras and microphones. The reporters whispered to one another while their phones buzzed with news. Ethan didn't want to be in the spotlight, but Colonel Monroe had made it obvious. "Your voice matters, Sergeant. Use it." Ethan went up to the mic and looked straight ahead. "I'm Staff Sergeant Ethan Hayes, Tomb Guard, United States Army. For 10 years I've served this nation on battlefields in the dark, and now at the tomb of the unknown soldier. My job is to honor those who gave everything, but a week ago in Willow Creek, that honor was questioned, not because of my actions, but because of what someone thought I was." He paused, letting the words sink in. The crowd, which included veterans, family members, and students with homemade signs, listened to every word. "I was judged by how I looked, not by how I served. They handcuffed me, threw me out, and disrespected me. But I'm not here for pity. I'm here because I can't stay quiet. Respect isn't up for debate, and honor can't be taken away." The reporters wrote down everything, but Ethan wasn't talking to them. He was talking to the kid at home, the veteran who felt forgotten, and the individual who had been wrongly criticized. "We guard the unknowns because they represent every soldier who gave their life for this country. If we can't respect the living, how can we honor the fallen?" He moved back. The applause started off quiet, but quickly got louder, making a noise that drowned out the camera's clicks. Sarah and the crowd grinned. She had already written her essay about a soldier who stood proudly, and was ready to tell the world about it. Ethan's steps were steady as he walked back to the cemetery, just like they were at the tomb. He realized that the fight wasn't done, at least not for him or anyone else who had felt invisible, but he also recognized that honor wasn't in the medals or the outfit. It was about standing up for yourself, speaking out, and never letting someone take away what you had earned. Ethan stood guard at the tomb again, this time with a dismal sky. 21 steps, 21 seconds, and the beat never stopped. He wasn't guarding for the world to see now. He was protecting the fallen, the truth, and everyone who had been told they didn't belong. And when the rain started to fall, Ethan Hayes stood taller than ever, a sentinel of honor who would never be forgotten.